Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Darcey and Stacey. Let's get to the show.
I asked you before we got married, was there anything else? And then this new video pops up. I don't know. It looked like you were looking at the camera and you guys were laughing and joking around in the bed, like doing sex positions, and she was like moaning.
I know her.
Okay, Florian, give us more. If I were there as the couple's therapist, I'd be like, okay, Florian, keep talking. The floor is yours. You have the opportunity to say the full story. Tell us the whole thing. Because up until this point, this is his strategy or his style is just to give like extremely short answers. There's a dynamic between these two that I've been commenting on, kind of, where she's a mother and he's like a teenager. That's the vibe. And this is very common. This isn't just with this couple. I almost always see this in couples where one person is more the adult than the other person. Those roles become polarized and more problematic the more undifferentiated people are, the more conflict there is. Meaning that you can have a perfectly functional relationship where one person is a little bit more responsible and a little bit more over-functioning, and the other person is a little bit more irresponsible, a little bit more spontaneous and youthful and free and that kind of thing. And those two roles can complement each other sometimes. It's just when it becomes rigid when problems happen. So let's observe that as we go here, because it's a teenage thing to do, to not have empathy for the other person such that you want to explain yourself. Also, it's a teenage attitude when you just think, you know what, get off my back, that kind of attitude, instead of like, well, I'm in a relationship here. I'm an adult, she's an adult, and I have a responsibility for her feelings. I hurt her. That's on me. And that means I have to fix it, which means I've got to put a lot of effort into trying to fix it, and I might bumble it. The other part of being a teenage vibe is you just don't feel very competent in conflict, generally. You just feel like, well, I don't know what to say, and so I give up. When a 15-year-old goes into a situation and they feel uncomfortable, typically they will just shut down. They'll be like, I'm out. They go into a classroom and they're the new kid at school, and the teacher says to the new kid, okay, well, why don't you introduce yourself? And the new kid is shy and doesn't know what to say. They'll just be like, well, I don't want to. Okay. Not every 15-year-old will say that, but some 15-year-olds will say it. An adult will say, well, I don't want to make everyone uncomfortable. I don't want to introduce myself. I'm embarrassed right now. I'm scared. I'm the new person. I wish the teacher wouldn't have put me on the spot like that. But I don't want to alienate everyone around me. And if I just have a short answer, they're going to get uncomfortable. And I don't want to put other people through that. So, okay, fine. I'll bumble my way through introducing myself because I have empathy for other people because I'm an adult. Teenagers developmentally are still developing that empathy for other people in the way that they will have when they're an adult. And so that's another reason why I think they have this dynamic where Florian just gives these very short answers because I think he doesn't know his way out of it. And so he just barks these things hoping that mommy will go away and leave him alone.
But how did you get in that position? How did you get in her room? And I don't understand. Like, why can't you just be open? Did she want you? Did she?
There's no need to tell you.
So, okay, I'm not the therapist, so I can have feeling, if they were my clients, I would immediately, upon having the feeling that I just had, which is like, dude, what are you doing? As a therapist, I would immediately clamp down on that and say, like, dude, Kirk, that's not going to help to go into that headspace. Continue to have compassion. We'll get there. But as a viewer of a TV show, I just have to say this is frustrating. I'm going to rewind this because I keep interrupting. I just want you to get a feel for his vibe.
I know her.
How did you get in that position? How did you get in her room? And I don't understand. Like, why can't you just be open? Did she want you? Did she?
There's no need to tell you.
Florian, why did you go there? Like, why did you do that? I still don't have the answers to that.
I don't feel good I'm talking for this. I'm serial.
What? I didn't have sex with her. I don't feel good talking about this. I don't want to talk about... Well, then what's... And I'm so worried that for Stacy, since she wasn't raised well enough and with enough space for her to be herself and get to know herself, that she'll just focus on him and she won't want to discomfort him. She won't want to be abandoned by him. And she'll just laser focus on that. It's like, okay, he's up, what's the road to wellness? I'm in distress right now. The road to wellness is if I just let it go. And I just say, you know what, Florian, I love you anyway. I trust you. Let's just, you agree you're not going to do that again, right? Okay, let's move forward. There's nothing wrong with that path, but there is something potentially destructive if that process, which it very likely would, ignore her needs. That she needs some reassurance that he can be trusted. And the only way that could really be achieved is if he explains what in the F was going on in that video. At least something. As I've been saying from the beginning, and he hasn't provided yet, he's provided no viable explanation as to what happened there. And there is a potential viable explanation. If it were true, because if it's a lie, then obviously you shouldn't say this, but if it were true that he was just playing around, he was drunk, and he didn't think anyone would ever see it. Yeah, he was flirting, but they never kissed and never had sex. You know what? I made a mistake. I missed you, and we had that fight. You know what? I was weak in the moment, and I flirted pretty heavily with her. I never wanted to get together with her because you and I are engaged, but I just had a weak moment. And to tell you the truth, there was a moment like this too, where I was at this party and I flirted. Me and this woman, we talked for like an hour, and I don't know. We never did anything, but being apart for 5 years, having a long distance relationship for 5 years, I had some weak times. Nothing ever happened, but if it were true, what I'm saying right now, this would help, right? There would be something there, or even extreme, like same kind of scenario. Like, yeah, long distance relationship, Stacy, it was really hard. And there were a couple moments where I cheated on you. And that was one of the moments. And it was terrible. And I'm so sorry. And I'll answer whatever questions you have. But I want you to know that I'm in the marriage to win it right now. I don't know if I can handle long distance. That's not good for me. I'm in love with you and I want to be with you. I never want to leave your side. That's why when you were saying you wanted to go to LA, I was like, what if we're apart? Because then that stuff's going to come back in. I don't ever want to lose you. I don't know, something, some kind of story, some truth. Because usually people don't cheat because they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Let me tell you another story, I guess, that he could say. Stacy, I have my wife's name is Stacy, by the way, so this is kind of weird for me to say. So to be clear, and my wife watches these videos sometimes. So, well, she watches all of them because she's the producer behind the scenes. But so, wife of mine, when you're watching this, I'm not talking to you. This is me role playing as Florian. Stacy, my wife, I as Florian, a man from Europe and not from Seattle, I have a problem, and I am ashamed of it. And this has been a problem in all my relationships. Is I have a wandering eye, and I think it goes back to my dad because and I feel like a broken person because of these things that I do. And when I do them, I don't like it. It doesn't feel good as I'm doing it. Okay, so that's the role play. I've heard that from people. I've heard the stories of infidelity, and I've heard people say, while I was having sex with that person, every second I was ashamed of myself and hated myself. And afterwards, I couldn't stop vomiting because I was so angry at myself. It was almost as if cheating was an act of self-destruction that I was doing to myself, like cutting or something. I've heard stories like that. There's a lot of roads to infidelity. Most of them involve a lot of suffering for people. They don't usually come from a place of like, I'm going to have my cake and eat it too, because it tears people apart to lie. It's not natural for us non-psychopaths to lie. It feels bad to us. And so it usually is born out of some dysfunction. It doesn't excuse it. It's wrong. In the same way that murder doesn't usually come from a place of, I'm going to go murder that person. It usually comes people that, there's a lot of different stories to murder, but or let me use a lesser crime like theft, like breaking a car window and stealing your purse. I think most of us understands that the road that leads to someone to break into your car and steal your purse, it's not like they woke up in the morning and go like, it's usually drug addiction, which usually is trauma, and they've run out of all other means of getting money and they're desperate and they need their fix. And so they've started to turn to petty crime. Most of us understand that. Infidelity is the same thing. And we all need to change our cultural understanding of what infidelity is. Again, breaking into someone's car, totally wrong. An absolute violation. People can be traumatized. They come to their car, their stuff is gone. You have to replace all the stuff. Some of the stuff in your purse might be irreplaceable, like your mom's wedding ring that she passed down to you through the generations. You can never get that back. It's wrong to break into someone's car. It is wrong to cheat on someone. When we investigate it, usually the cheated on partner, the Staceys of the world, will at least say to themselves, oh, this doesn't have to do with his love for me. It has to do with his traumas, which gives us a path forward. If we can help him with his traumas, then we can reduce the likelihood of this happening again.
Well, I don't understand. Like, why can't you just be open? From what Florian told me, was an Instagram friend or whatever, and she wanted to do a photo shoot with him because she knew he wants to be a model, and she's, I guess, a model. So he told me that they were just meeting up at a cafe and take some photos. Her intentions weren't really to have a photo shoot. It was to take my man.
All right, so Stacy is now telling us what Florian told her away from the cameras, and that she wanted to meet up for a photo shoot, which sounds credible because he is a model and we've seen those pictures. They ended up in the hotel room and his shirt was off. Okay. But in bed making sex noises and all that stuff. How did that happen?
How many times did you see her?
Two times.
How did you end up laying on her bed?
Okay, so it's always great when the producers are like, all right, someone's got to ask this question. So the producer's like, how did you end up laying on her bed? Because, again, Stacy, I guess, isn't asking those questions. Let's hear his answer here.
What I suggest we will not post this picture. Never. To delete, I suggest.
It's not an answer to the question, bud. They asked you how you ended up in her bed without a shirt on. And your answer is, I told her never to post those pictures. Again, if we look at it through a lens of age, that sounds like a teenage thing to say. Your 13-year-old gets caught with pot at school. And the kid comes home and you're just like, how did you end up with marijuana, 1, and 2, at school? I told my friend to not put it in my bag, or I thought I smoked all of it before school. You'll hear answers like that from kids, and you're like, okay, that doesn't really answer the question. Gives us some more detail there. So basically, what his answer to that question is, I told her to cover this up. It's not an answer to the question, bud.
I deserve the truth. You're hurting me more by not letting me know the truth.
It hurts you for what I tell.
Again, he's not fluent in English, so I can't tell, but I think what he just said was, if I tell you the truth, it's going to hurt you. That's kind of what it sounded like.
I understand you probably feel like you're gonna hurt me, but it hurts me more. But it hurts me more that you didn't tell me about these other videos and whatever else is out there.
I understand that I cause the pain.
So
I understand.
just tell me from your mouth. I don't need.
I'm going to emulate his style of responding, not as a way of mocking him, as I always say, but as a way of emphasizing what the voice sounds like. Because I think it's easy to get kind of, and people will do this in relationships too. It's easy to be lulled into normalizing someone's behavior. And when I demonstrate it as best I can, it points out that it's not normal, okay? It's not abnormal, but it's not adult behavior. For him to say something like, I know what hurt you. I don't need to hear that anymore. Okay, that's what a child does. I'm not mocking, but that's what a child does. An adult would say, I know it hurt you, and I'm so sorry. That's an adult. A child, teenager, is, I know, what? Okay, so let's rewind that and watch.
I understand you probably feel like you're gonna hurt me, but it hurts me more. But it hurts me more that you didn't tell me about these other videos and whatever else is out there.
I understand that I cause the pain.
So
I understand.
just tell
As I always say, why would someone act like a teenager when they're a grown man? Well, usually it's because of traumas and neglect, alcoholism, who knows, something going on that arrests one development so that they don't feel competent or comfortable in an adult space. It's usually a lack of confidence, usually a lack of self-esteem that causes someone not to be able to graduate to that higher level of really owning your own feelings and taking care of other people. There's a pretty good possibility that right now he is in a deep amount of shame and in a deep amount of distress, and he doesn't know any way out of that because he was never given a way out of that or modeled a way out of that or given enough self-esteem. In order for someone to act like an adult and say, like, you know what, I'm sorry, I did something terribly wrong, and you're right to be upset. In order to say that, you have to have self-esteem to stand on such that you can admit to something terrible and very quickly bounce back and forth between, but I'm still a good person. I just made a terrible mistake and I'm really sorry, but but internally you're thinking, but I'm still a good person. I know that I'm not a terrible person, that I did this, but I did this terrible thing, but it doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. You need to have that foundation of self-esteem, and without that, you don't have anything to go back on it, so you can't really admit you did anything wrong because you're just going to fall into this abyss of shame and nothingness, and I wonder if that's what's happening for him. I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
Tell me from your mouth. I don't need to hear from anyone else, but I need to hear from you first.
I don't give a for her. I understand. I'm not doing no more. That's it. I'm not doing no more.
So it's very much of a mother-child dynamic. Not to put him down, but to acknowledge the dynamic, and as a couples therapist, that would be something on the agenda. I've treated many, many couples that have this sort of dynamic, and I never am like, okay, Florian, stop it. It's something that needs a lot of investigation, to some extent tiptoeing around a little bit so you don't insult someone, getting good relationship, moving in the direction of trauma and understanding where that comes from, and over maybe months, if not years. A lot of the couples that I've treated, it's years of treatment. It takes a long time because everything that is informing this dynamic right here is a lifetime of trauma, and that doesn't go away overnight.
I love you. You're number one for me. So I apologize for everything.
But this can't happen again. Be a man of your word.
Okay, so there we are. And Stacy's free to make this choice, of course. And it might not be a bad choice. We don't know the future. Maybe Florian is a great spouse moving forward. Maybe the thing he did wasn't so bad and he's completely inept in terms of his ability to explain himself or to stand on his own 2 feet when he's explaining himself. Who knows? It's also a possibility that he's a dog and a terrible human being and all sorts of things. Hard to know from what we've seen. Those videos, there's a lot of potential explanations for why those existed. So who knows? But I was afraid that this was going to happen because I don't think that Stacy, if I was to pull her aside and go, Stacy, do you really trust him? Do you really think that you can trust him? You tell me, Stacy, you know him more than any of us do. Do you really trust him? I suspect she would say, no, I don't understand his explanation. I don't understand. He didn't say anything. He just said that they went on a photo shoot. That doesn't make any sense as to what I saw. And so I would say, okay, what do you need when you think about that you don't really trust him? What else comes to mind? She might, eventually say, but I love him. I don't know. I kind of feel like he's not going to do it again. Okay. So those are kind of in opposition. I don't trust him. I feel like he's going to do it again. I kind of trust him. I feel like he's not going to do it again. I love him. I want to be with him. Okay. Those things can exist in the same person. Tell me more. A lot of exploration from a therapist that understands how to create a space that is safe. Most people don't do that. Usually close people, family members, friends, they want to jump to fixing it real quick. And and therapists, novice therapists do this too. They jump to fixing very, very quickly. And that never fixes, never works, or very rarely anyway. What works is to help Stacy have, maybe for the first time in her life, I don't know, a space where someone creates a relational space where she can explore and not feel attacked or pushed, so that she can really just think for herself. Because what happened, and this is my running hypothesis for her, is that she is other-focused. She is other-focused to a fault, and that she doesn't focus on herself. Things are going on in herself she's not focused on. So when she tells her story to friends and family and stuff, and they get their energy involved, and they're just like, he's a dog, you need to leave him. Well, now she has to worry about them. Some of you might be able to relate to this, where you never really feel like you're given a true space to just exhale and be you. You can maybe only do that when you're alone, which isn't enough. We need to have that in relation. We're relational animals. And so we need someone else to sit there and listen in a non-judgmental way, in a way that doesn't have an agenda. And when a friend or a family member comes to you when they are going through emotional distress, the best thing you can do is avoid trying to fix their problem. The best thing you can do is just listen and say, tell me more. Or, wow, that sounds interesting. Or just reflect. Oh, I hear a dilemma there. I hear that in what you're saying. And so many people jump to, well, I don't know about this guy. I feel like you should leave him, particularly around people like Stacy, because she gives off this impression like she doesn't have a direction in life. She doesn't seem to have a firm grasp on her rights as a human being. And so that's very tempting to people to jump in and be like, no, Stacy, don't. You're right. Well, now Stacy's just focused on you, trying to please you. It's like, oh, this person's telling me I got to leave. Okay, I better sort of manage their feelings. And again, no time for, well, who am I? What do I want? What do I need?
For life.
For life.
Look
for
me in the
life.
eye.
For life. Yeah.
I want to believe him and I want to trust him, but obviously he's lied. But I still love him. I can't just stop loving him overnight. And I know he loves me. He made a mistake.
Yeah, I just want to point out there is nothing wrong with her having that perspective. I suspect people watching this show think she's stupid, because I've seen that before. People be like, you're naive, you're stupid, you don't have any self-esteem to stand on your own, you can't see what all of us can see. I just want to point out that none of us know the love that they have. None of us know the bond that they have. None of us know who Florian really is as a person. She knows him very, very well. And so this might be a very intelligent choice. And also, as I always say, it's not as if it's a choice between like a good and bad result. You're basically choosing between lesser of two evils, right? So there's the path of like, well, I kind of believe him, and he hasn't really explained what happened there, but I believe his general message that it wasn't a big deal and it's never going to happen again. And I believe that he loves me, and I believe he wants to be with me. But if I go down that road, there's this ambivalence of like, but what if? And so there's always that worry that's going to be heading, over my head. The other option of leaving him is terrible because I have to start all over, and maybe the next guy will have something like this too, and then where am I? What if I never find anyone else that loves me the way he loves me, the way I love him? So, for us looking at her, it's easy to say like, well, just leave him. It's a very easy thing for friends and family to do. And therapists will fall into this trap. It's actually a known empirical countertransference, particularly therapists that don't work with relationships very much. It's very easy to be like, it'll solve all my problems if you leave this guy. Because I get distressed when I hear your story. So if you leave him, my distress will go away. So can you relieve me of my distress? But that discounts her need for love and attachment and moving forward in life and building a family with him, whatever. So we all just have to acknowledge that there's a bigger picture here that we can't really feel, Maybe y'all can feel it, I don't know. But I just want to point that out.
No use.
Is there anything else you want to say about this?
This is everything. And I have no more to tell.
The real person I worry about is Florian, because there's something going on there. For him to feel like he can't just give her the truth, that he can't stand on his own 2 feet and just tell her how he feels and what's going on, that he can't just say that he made a mistake. Like, what is going on there with him for that? What kind of traumas resulted in that one? He's someone I actually sincerely worry about. All right, well, that does it for that episode. If you haven't already subscribed or hit the bell below and you want to, go ahead and do that. Upvote, downvote, however you feel. Comment below. I always read the comments. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.